Good deal. Hey, great to see you. You know, we had a great ride last week. How fun was that?
It was crazy, right? 40 guys out in the woods, totally off grid, right? For Friday, Saturday,
Yeah, no
Sunday.
cell.
And come back on Monday, and the world has changed. And that's what we're going to be talking about. Everybody, welcome to AI for Knuckle-Draggers, episode 7. I am William Poett, and my good buddy co-host, Mike Schmitt. I think this is going to be an
Hey,
amazing show.
big show, and I think the thing is too is that this whole Fable versus Opus versus Chat 5.5 versus 5.6. We're going to get into all of that. But one of the things I wanted to kind of chat about is you and I've been chatting, talking about this new thing that Anthropic's coming up with. It's free this second until the 22nd of June. Then we're going to have to pay for it. But one of the things that I'm scratching my head on is do I need the heavy duty compute on it? I mean, the headlines make it sound like everybody's already living in AI, but the data suggests that most companies are still just getting started. Right? If you have the Census Bureau came out with a stat that said that if you have 20 or more employees, you're going pretty deep. But if you're just a single or a smaller company, you're just kind of getting started. In my mind, you're still okay. Like as good as the Fable is today, and I get it's better than anything we've ever had. I think you and I would both bet that there's going to be about 1,200 more iterations that come out, and we're probably a couple of years away from even coming close to maximizing what AI is going to be able to do from a compute standpoint.
Well, and that's funny. That's kind of where you and I bump a little bit. I do believe that we are headed or trending towards the ultimate algorithm, the super intelligence. But I want to just pause for a second and talk about your stats on adoption. And when they say that enterprises are adopting AI, my experience in the field is there are very few power users. Even if people have it, if they've got Copilot in their enterprise and OpenClaw now moving out into enterprises, and Claude is doing a lot of enterprise sales. And that's what we want to bring you guys in this show. It's how do you maximize the impact of these tools, and that's something that I've been playing with and struggling with forever. So to Mike's point, you're not too late, and we're going to talk more about this in the show. You've got to start. I cannot emphasize enough. When we came out from our ride, there's the Moonshots group, which shout out to those guys. They actually held kind of an emergency podcast just to kind of bring everybody up to speed. Anthropic, and we're going to talk about these IPOs and everything that's happening right now. But Anthropic, right on the evening of their IPO, said, "Hey, 80% of the code that is now being released is being written by AI. We are on the doorstep of recursive self improvement, and if you're new to this field, right now the bottleneck are humans. We cannot process. We can't keep up with the speed. The average person, I think." Reads about 150 words a minute. AI is processing more than 10,000 words a minute. So, Mike and I joke when I'm working between my AI teams, sometimes I feel like the meat puppet. Like I can't even understand half of what it's telling me to do. And I'm just kind of transferring from one thing to the next. Um, with the organizations and people that you're in so many groups. You got the men's study groups, and you got the Rotary, and you got the Los Caballeros, and the Pobres Vistadores. Um, how deep is the actual deployment rate? How many of the folks are you seeing are
So the
using
U.S.
it?
Census just came out with this stat that they took out. They basically ran a poll from December of 2025 till May of 2026. So it's pretty recent data. And their number here is that 17 to 20% of U.S. businesses are using AI in some form. To your point a minute ago, most of those guys are probably just using it as an elevated search engine. Some of them are starting to kind of maybe start to use it to look at their email or maybe look at marketing campaigns, and they're starting to maybe work some projects. But to the point where you and I are building agents, and then agents that are spawning other agents, and you and I are each running 20 to 30 or 40 agents. And compared to the guys on the All In podcast or the Moonshots, where some of those guys are running several hundred or maybe even 1,000 agents, we're pikers, but we're still kind of in that more super user category. That survey also suggested that over the next 6 months, 20 to 23% of the other American businesses are thinking that they're going to be bringing AI in. So the comfort or the realization that businesses are going to have to start adopting AI into their regular routine is getting there. It's taken a minute. I I I I'm not a meat puppet. I'm not going to ever think of myself as a meat puppet. I am a human being endowed by God with certain inalienable rights and abilities. And I'm pretty certain AI is going to be a great tool for me to go through and expand my humanity and elevate the people that are around me. So I mean, I kind of laugh when some of these guys are talking about, the technology is going to get to be so smart that we're going to be kind of, unuseful. You and I struggle with this. We've been struggling about this for 2 or 3 years, having these conversations. Philosophically, I think AI is here to elevate our humanity, and I think your point is well taken. Though, start using it because it keeps getting smarter, and you can even use the free versions, even though they're going to start charging for the advanced versions, because even the free versions are significantly better than anything we had 2 years ago, or even 6 months ago.
First of all, amen and preach, brother. I agree with you. I see this tool as something that can elevate my humanity, elevate my impact, elevate my joy. But one of the things we need to recognize and come to grips with, and this is where I think there's some fear and anxiety. So what happened is, if you've been even close to AI for the last couple of months, Anthropic created an entirely new brain that is a step change above Opus, and it's called Mythos. And there was a lot of news about it, and it was too powerful to be released, and they still haven't released it to the general public. What they did, and I get it
Not in
again,
its full format.
no, not in its full format. So there are organizations, governments, high level financial institutions that are using Mythos. Well, this week, I think it was Tuesday, they released Fable 5. And so Fable 5 is the open facing version of this new brain. And this new brain is a step change above anything that's out there. And I've been playing with it every single day. You know, and here's a prediction, and I've been making this prediction for almost a year. September, the state of these tools and technologies, the world is going to have their OS moment. And you guys, as Knuckle-Draggers, can probably guess what an OS moment means. And that's where, most people are like, yeah, AI, but I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't see the value. I don't see the application. We're about to get there. So here's an example of the power of Fable 5. Driving home, I had a meeting in Santa Barbara with a winery slash live music event. And he wants to know, he's like, hey, well, can you help me? Maybe AI could do something for me. And he brought in a menu, a brochure. I looked up their website, and it's a beautiful facility. And some of you knuckle draggers might be with me on this, but the collateral, the representation of it is terrible. I mean, I showed the menu, the wine tasting menu to my girlfriend, and she's like, you're never going to get me to go there. So I'm stuck in traffic. I'm talking to Fable 5, and I said, hey, I want you to research the top 5 award-winning wineries in Napa Valley. I want you to take a look at what this company currently has, and I need a website, I need brochures, I need a logo, I need a new menu, I need an app, a landing page, because they're going to be doing adventure tours. And I just want you to load all this up so I can share it in a demo. So I'm in traffic, like my car is stopped. 5 minutes later, Fable 5 sends me a link to a website that I showed my girlfriend is in the wine industry, and it was an OS moment. He was like, oh, and so this would have cost 25 grand if you went out and had somebody do it for you. And guess what? You can take your last quarter's financials. You can have it do a summary on where you're bleeding money, where things shouldn't be going, where things should be going. You can have it there,
Hey,
there isn't.
let me intersect. If you're
Yeah,
gonna throw your financials into the AI, anonymize it, right? Because you got to remember when you put it in there, it's going up into the cloud and potentially. So
absolutely.
just black
Remove your
flag.
name
Yeah,
and
remove identifying EIN numbers, your company name, but to William's point, when you do it, you're going to be pretty impressed when it comes when it goes through and looks at margin increase and decreases period over period. Cost of different costs. It'll give you 5 or 6 things that you might be able to go through and look at and say, hey, you're doing really really well, or hey, you know what, here's a few areas you might want to look at.
So 100%. So what I want you guys to understand, and if you have an Opus Pro account, or I believe it's if you're on the $20 plan, I still think you have access. Here's where it's going to get weird, and here's something that no one that I know of in the AI world is happy about. They are giving us free to this super brain, and it is more powerful than anything I've used before until I believe the 23rd of June. Then what they're going to do is they're going to have it. You're going to be paying for tokens versus subscription. There was a company on X that said we are currently investing $400,000 a year for their AI usage with all their engineers and everybody on the team. That bill is about to go from 400,000 to 1.4 million. And we've talked about this in previous episodes. What is about to happen is there's going to be this a bifurcation of people that can afford intelligence and those who can't. So there's two big issues coming up. Mike mentioned earlier in the show, when do you need a super brain? And this is going to be a high level skill set that we're going to be talking to you guys about. There are strategic use cases where companies that have access to the biggest brain are going to have a competitive edge that you will not be able to bridge. Period. End of story.
Yeah, but let's talk about that, because if you're running a real estate office or you're running a property management firm or a construction company, and you're not on the leading edge of chemical, biomedical, or space research, right? I'm kind of I'm looking at what I'm getting with the models that I have right now, and it's so significantly advanced over what I thought it was going to be that I think that you're going to have time. You can jump in at the lower level models and know that there's a more advanced model, because if you really, really need to get in and go do some programming, some heavy lifting, and you're really doing something that's innovative and novel, yeah, then you know what? Maybe you need to spend the extra money. But let's not let that cost barrier get in the way of people thinking, I can't, why do this now? Because I think that's the wrong message, right?
Okay.
Even the lower cost free models are pretty damn good for what most people are going to use them for the next 6 months.
So I'm going to push back on your pushback. I'm a close quarter combat instructor. That's my nature. I am looking for threats. I'm looking for counters to threats. And so, using your example of I'm a construction company, uh, the tools that they aren't giving us. So right now, what we can do for somebody is our agents. We can create an agent and we can create a loop, and we'll talk about loops a little bit later in the show. And your agent can go out, you can give it a demographic, a geographic area, and it can scrape all available. It can scrape foreclosures. It can scrape any news. It can find you deals faster than any of your competitors, and it can deliver you a report in the morning. That's going to give you a competitive edge. It can go out and it can interview contractors. It can interview price points. So right now, with some work and some elbow grease, that's what our agent teams are doing for our customers and clients, which is phenomenal. Big competitive edge. What is the next iteration, which I actually believe exists, is I will say to my one AI, I'll say, we need to be the dominant competitor in this market. I want you to build a team of agents that are going to get me the best deals faster than anybody else. I want to find the best contractors. I want to have the best price points. And I'm going to speak to it in plain language. I'm not going to have to build these harnesses, and it's going to do it. It's going to do it. And so, yeah, I'll pay, so to Mike's point, yes, start using it right now. Your ability to manage intelligence and here's where people that can afford this, right? And so right now, I'm paying 300 a month for OpenAI and Anthropic. I think Mike's right there with me.
No,
And
I'm
some
paying
people,
160.
yeah. So okay. So some people say, well, that seems a lot of money. Not if it's giving me, not if it's letting me get the tools and get the access. Now, am I using the highest level brain for all my tasks? No. And this is really, really important, right? When if you have on your team in your company right now, you've got an MIT engineering doctorate because they're in charge of all your IT, and you've got a college intern, you are obviously going to delegate which team member gets what action. A big mistake a lot of people are making right now is they're paying for the big brains and they're having the big brains do everything. And so there is the ability, and we're teaching people this, and we're building this into our agent teams to where you can segregate. High level strategy goes to the biggest brain. Mid level strategy goes to this brain. Next level strategy goes to a free brain that just needs to run a loop consistently. But
And that's going to
I,
include graphics creation, video content, posting to social media. Like there's certain things that at all the different levels that do competent jobs. And then there's other things that you're going to want that are going to go through and break through and do some stuff. And, to William's point, as much as I'm boasting that I'm only spending 160 right now, I'm going to jump in with 2 feet here at the end of the month, and I'm probably going to go for the bigger cost just to test it and see if it's actually, because I've been using it pretty hard over the since February, ever since OpenClock came out. So I've got a point of reference to be able to determine, hey, this is going pretty well, and do I get much, and I'll try it for a month or two and see if it gives me something significantly better. But I am already monetizing within my family business consulting practice today easily the expense that I put in and the time that I put in the last 4 months. It is absolutely taken us to another level, and we're seeing the actual dollars coming in the door to kind of make that work. And it just, I'm still a cautious kind of person, and I want to go through and make certain that I'm using my dollars and tokens and expenditures reasonably, and make certain there's a decent return on it.
So, and again, you guys, our goal, we are in the field every day using these tools, pushing on them, breaking them, sharing them with clients, building out new use cases. Um, and the real challenge is it's not what can they do for you, it's what can't they do for you. And that's where it gets really fun to push on your teams, to have your teams teach you. When you're using one of these super brains, again, I've got a construction company, and we build hotels or we build multi-use buildings. Go to the super brain and say, my company needs a competitive edge. I want you to research me. I want you to research everybody in the field. What are we doing well? What are we doing wrong? And then interview me one question at a time. What are 15 things you can ask me to show me what I don't know that you can do? Where am I not using your powers? Where am I not using your tools? One of the things that we've just done, and this is going to take us into a next segment. So, the designers of these tools, the chief engineer of Claude, of which is now Mythos, and Peter Steinbrenner, who created OpenClaw, which we use as a architecture for our agents, are all coming out and saying prompt engineering is dead. You need to create a loop. And so this I want this kind of a 101 basic. Prompt engineering is high level skill set. 2 years ago, so in 2024, companies were hiring prompt engineers and paying $250,000 because you had to really understand how do you set up the question? What's the context, right? You create an expert in a given field. You create a panel in a given field. You feed the LLM, ChatGPT, or whichever, a series of questions, and based on the quality of your prompt, it exponentially will impact the quality of the output, right? So the old adage, garbage in, garbage out, 100% true. But it's a hyper reactive process where you give it a question, it gives you an answer. You give it a question, you give it an answer. Most of what occurs in business is a repetitive task. And so when we build a loop for an organization, basically it's what is the outcome? What are the first steps you have to do? How do you optimize those steps? then give me a report. Let me there must be a human in the loop, and that's to Mike's point. My job is to bring judgment and taste. Then I iterate XYZ, it goes back and it re-engineers, it re-researches, then it delivers whatever the outcome I want. And you can create a loop for any repeating task. And that's where it gets exciting. So when I'm talking to my chief of staff, so we have a group of agents that Mike and I are using, T9. Mine's Tat, his is Baxter's. Now, when I talk to Tat and I say, "Hey, Tat, I want a social media campaign. We are certifying AI native leaders, and I'd like things to be delivered from my 5 different social media accounts." If Tat recognizes this is a repeating task, now this is get kind of cool. It automatically sends it to our sub agent architect. Architect is a super brain. This is where we're paying for the best brains. Architect engineers a loop. This is what I need. These are the 5 steps that needs to happen to deliver the outcome we want. Then architect delivers that loop to another sub agent that's running on a much less advanced brain, a much less low, and that brain just conducts the process, but it's within a harness and it delivers unbelievable results every day. And you can have as many loops running in your company as you want. You can have as many loops running in your life as you want. So, and we actually have a fun little 5-minute tutorial that if you're a member of the Posse, it's an app. It runs you through the difference between prompt engineering and loops. So I hope you guys are subscribing not only to our show, but I hope you're members of the Posse. We always have a link to join underneath. And it's a really fun, massive upgrade. So just write this down. Prompt engineering is dead. Loops are 2026.
Yeah, and if you've got a question because you're just starting, and a lot of you guys are just starting, and it's okay, just send us a note. Send us. We'll get back to you, or put it in the show notes down, and we'll respond back and kind of what that is. But again, prompting is that thing we were talking about in previous episodes about how do we go through and think about in a bigger picture, to paint a picture as to what the future could be like, and how do we use these tools to come and assist us. This is where critical thinking and constantly pushing against what our traditional way of doing things are, and asking it the question, hey, I'm in a plumbing company, I'm in XYZ county in this state, and could you do a survey for me? How many plumbing companies am I competing against in residential or commercial? And what do you think, from what you can tell on the internet, what do you think my strength, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats are? Your SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What's the SWOT analysis for my company? And how would you, give me some guidance as to elevate my strengths and elevate my opportunities and limit my threats and my weaknesses? It's a great little exercise, and it can do it for you in fact, William, you and I have that article on that one AI or with that one consulting company who basically has a portal up and giving free consultative strategy, and I think it's brilliant, because what it does is it lets somebody come in and play in the playground, ask a question that they're trying to deal with the consulting company, and then make certain the consulting company, when they do get in there, they're actually getting real work done faster, so we don't end up spending 2 or 3 hours of the client's money trying to do all the research. I mean, we'll still be doing some of that just to vet it, but it makes it so much more efficient when we're onboarding a new customer, that they've already kind of gone and played in the sandbox, asked some questions, got some free advice, and now it's kind of gotten to a point where, hey, here you go. That customer's gone as far as they can with the free advice, and now they need your advice, my advice, somebody else's advice to take them to that next level and really work on big time strategy.
And I love that, Mike. And this working on big time strategy, right? What AI used well does is it elevates the thought process. You have to become more strategic. You have to be connected to the bigger picture. You have to know what the outcomes are. So we talked about this in our last episode. The dangers of misusing AI for us adults is cognitive atrophy, right? If you're offloading your work and your thinking to AI, you will become dumber. With our children, we need to be really careful because there's something called cognitive foreclosure, where if AI is doing all the work for our kids, we're not developing the synaptic bridges. We're not developing, to Mike's point, learning how to problem solve, learning how to reason. So what we need to do, and this is a really cool article in that consulting company. McKinsey and Deloitte, these other big four consultants would charge six figures to do a SWOT analysis on your company, to really go in and deep dive and find out the strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Well, you know what? Uh, Certainly Fable 5 and do an exponentially better SWOT analysis on your organization than what you would have paid any of the companies to do 2 or 3 years ago. So your challenge as a business leader is, and as consultants, and I'm going to say this over and over again, it's orchestrating intelligence. And that requires you to understand what's the greatest outcome, what's the greatest win for my company, what's the greatest win for my customers, what's the greatest win for my team. And when you can identify that, then we leverage these tools to build out the collateral and the components and the loops and the work processes to get us there. So really, we
Which
want
goes into our last segment, right? Because our last segment, I really still want to talk about humanity, right? And I'm still chunking through Pope Leo's, encyclical on AI, at 42,000 words, and it's a lot, right? And again, this is Pope Leo the 14th, our current pope, and he kind of riffed off of Pope Leo the 13th's encyclical from the 1890s, 1880s, when we're coming out of the Industrial Revolution, and talking about not letting the Industrial Revolution dehumanize humanity, and how do we continue to elevate. And Pope Leo the 14th is kind of taking that and moving it in today's world of kind of thinking about how do we assimilate the technology, how do we use it, how do we use it to elevate our humanity, and also look out for those that are going to need help in the future. And I think that it's let's continue to keep talking about this, and because prompt engineering, prompt management of the intelligence, these are all human traits that come because we have lived experiences, we've got perspective, we've got failures, and we have wins, we have a moral compass. All of this allows us to go through and help the machines make better decisions, and make and craft it better for our families, for our communities, our businesses, our churches, and that kind of thing. So I'd encourage us to kind of like leap into that world of, let's continue to elevate ourselves with the use of these technologies.
Well, and this is where you and I 100% agree, right? This is, how do we use these tools to be human beings and not human doers? And so to go back to the previous Pope's missive, right? Let's not let the Industrial Revolution steal our humanity. And my argument is that's 100% what happened. I went from being a chair craftsman and artisan to being a knob maker. I went from being a seamstress that created beautiful dresses to making buttons. And then as we progressed, I went from being someone who built something that I loved and was passionate about to spending, this is the heartbreak story. You go to high school, you take your SATs, you go to college, you get a degree that has a good field record. You spend 40 years working for a company. The word hump day is invented because you don't love what you're doing and you've almost made it through the week, and then TGI Friday, and you do this for 40 years and you retire. That's supposed to be, and then you die 6 months later. That, if you look at the last 100 years, I don't think our humanity was honored. I don't think the individual genius was elevated, and we have a chance if we use these tools well. There will be a percentage of the population that just gets their VR goggles and plugs into some weird world and has DoorDash send them food, and they have no real experiences, they have no real life, and the government sends them a check, and it's a tragic,
Or they
terrifying.
make money. They could make money through technology. They could be one of those one-person billion-dollar companies, but they can live in their own little cocoon in their cave. But most humans want to have the interaction. They want to see their children and their grandchildren and their communities thrive. Most people are looking to try to figure. And what I'm becoming convinced of, or at least optimistic about, is that this AI, this technology, may actually empower our creatives where there wasn't much of a mechanism for them to go through and be able to make real livings. They can. We could almost, if we think about it, maybe this could be another renaissance going back 450, 500 years, where things were moving along. We were getting out of our aristocratic serf type economies. We were getting into more of a capitalistic, and you could have patrons that would buy your creativeness and help you kind of create beauty and goodness in the world. But at the same time, there were people who are out there as that capitalism was being unleashed and the mercantile system was really developing. There was a way to go through and kind of create money and wealth and security for you and your family. And I think we might be, if we can think about it, visualize it, and act it, might be in a spot we might see another creation of novel beauty and cultural renaissance, and use technology to help us get there.
I agree 100%. We are right now, entrepreneurship is exploding. And it's never been easier to start a company. It's never been easier to start, to take a dream, a vision, a product, a service, an experience, and bring it to the marketplace. We are there right now. My concern is maybe 30, 40, 50, 60% of the population will grab that and hold on to it. My concern is the algorithms are already stealing our agency. We're being dumbed down by social media. We're being sucked in. I think screen time between television and our phones is up to over 30 hours a week. We are and it's addictive, and it's attacking our dopamine, and it's, and so part of our goal with this show is to point you to the path that Mike's talking about, where your humanity is elevated, where your creative gifts are being explored and realized. And also, we started the show by saying, hey, you and I just did 3 days out in the wild. Good men, horses, barbecue, great stories, great music, real human connection. One night we sat around a humongous bonfire and just told stories,
My
legacy
new
story.
hat, my new hat has a little burn mark in it from that
A
fireball,
little, a
buddy.
little, a little live fire on the hat. I love that. And so as these tools become more powerful, as we become more productive, I do believe we'll be able to move to a 4 day work week. I do believe that we can move to a 6 hour workday. And as we experience and create more freedom in our life, let's make sure we're spending that time with people we love, doing the things we love, and the things that really matter. So I think you're going to find as you join the posse and spend time with us, this is about how do we use AI to elevate our humanity, to become better husbands, better fathers, better church members, and really elevate the community. And that's what I'm really having fun doing here with the show and with our Knuckle-Draggers. And Mike and I have been buddies for a couple of years now, and it's fun. If you roll up your hands, roll up your sleeves, get dirty with this, play, 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 play. If you're playing with these tools, you're going to learn. You will be elevated. If you stick around, become a member of the posse, we're going to give you more and more tools. Again, if you haven't subscribed, this week we're going to be mailing out to all of our members. It's a 5 minute tutorial. It's a little AI created app that explains how to build loops, how to take those repetitive tasks that take a lot of time, give it to your team, and free up 5 hours a week. Free up 5 hours a week. If you can do that, go to the golf course, go on a date, go to the gym, go for a horseback ride. That's
Hey,
what we're doing.
don't be afraid to put those extra 5 hours back in your business, because I think the amount of economic growth that's going to come up in the next 10 or 15 years, right? If you can get yourself out of the mundane and even spend two of those 5 hours on strategy, on how do you go through and be better for your customers or be more connected to your employees and elevate your game, that's okay too, because I think we're on the verge of a pretty big economic boom and I don't want you to be left behind on it. So take some of that, maybe put 60% of it towards all that other stuff, but 20 or 50%, put it back into your business and start to make certain you're ready for that next step.
Actually, Mike, that's an incredible point. And honestly, right now, because of the speed of change in 2026, if you are able to use AI to buy you 5 more hours a week, take those 5 hours a week and learn how to use AI. I watch videos, watch tutorials, get on YouTube. In addition to us, there's some amazing resources out there. I easily, well, I run every day. Whenever I work out, I'm watching, learning how to use these tools. I'd say 2 to 3 hours a day, I am investing in how to use these tools. And then the rest of the time, I'm deploying, training, and building. So now is not the time to sit back on your haunches. Now is the time to lean in. Not just to our Knuckle-Draggers show. I recommend Moonshots, great podcast out there, the All In podcast. There's a guy named Nate Jones. He brings a lot of real world great tools out there. And that's another thing we'll be sharing with you guys are additional resources to make you more effective and more better as part of our knuckle dragging posse.
Love it. You know what? I think we covered a good. You know what? We put all these notes together, William. I think we're getting a little better. Maybe let's see how these next episodes. We appreciate everybody who's been coming along with us and being part of the journey. Please sign up, be part of the posse, give us your perspectives. We are continuously trying to improve what we do and would love to have some interaction with you guys as well to make certain we're hitting on all marks for you.
Absolutely. And the data is showing that you guys are watching the show and you're liking the show, but you haven't subscribed yet. So it really helps us. Just click on the subscribe button, follow us. We're on Spotify, YouTube, and have a great
And we're
week.
not
Lean
posting
in.
shorts out there on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter, X, and LinkedIn. So you're going to see us in more and more spots. I think our goal this next week, William, is to get on a couple more of the podcast streaming outlets. Make certain
Yep.
there's other ways for people to get a hold of us. But yeah, you know what? I'm having a lot of fun doing this with you, William, and it was really nice to spend some time last week.
All right, you guys, that's it. That's a wrap. We will see you next week for episode 8. And until then, lean in, do the best you can, have fun, and we love you. Thanks for being on the team.
Have a great weekend, guys.
I was raised in the rust, built tough as nails, where the wind cuts sharp and the weak boys bail. I felt the dirt, I've tasted steel, but I ain't never bowed and I never will. Got a backbone carved out of red clay pride, and a fire that don't quit when it's tested or tried.